Welcome everyone, Dylan Gemelli here today with a brand new video for you, and today we are going to talk about how to use and dose Turinabol, also known as TBOL. But before we get into that, just a big shout out and thank you to everybody out there supporting the channel. I love you guys so much, and I appreciate all of the loyalty, the likes, the subs, the comments. Please, if you haven't yet, hit that like button, subscribe, share, whatever you can do. It helps the channel grow, and that allows me to produce more content for you. So, let's talk about TBOL Turinabol. I get a ton of questions on this, and ever since John Jones got busted using Turinabol, it's like it went from one of those like overlooked or underrated steroids to like supremely popular. Understandable, I get it, because you hear it mainstream, you think about a guy like John Jones, and it's like, holy shit, I want to do that. It's an underrated compound, I've said that a lot, but I understand why it gets thrown into the mix, because it's very versatile, it does a lot, but it doesn't do anything like, you don't get super size, you get good size, you don't get super strength, but you get good strength. It's just kind of there, and that's why it gets overlooked. You know, like with Anavar, for example, you'll get this, oh, it's mild, it's this and that, but it's like, it's one of the most popular compounds out there because it's really known for helping either lose, stubborn fat, but it's also known for at least giving you good amounts of strength, but just shredding you up. So it's really got something pronounced and profound. Winstrol as well, while you've got D-bol and Anadrol and Superdrol, they're all like supreme bulkers. I mean, they all do something really, really special. And T-bol just does a lot of really good things, which for most people, that's great. But a lot of people using steroids, they want like a specialty that something's doing. And so that's why it gets lost in the shuffle. It's kind of like equipoise gets lost in the shuffle. Although I don't like, equipoise nearly as much as T-bol personally. That's another one that I've always said was a little bit underrated. But then again, I understand. It's kind of like MK2866 in the SARMs world. Well, at this point, it's still one of the most versatile SARMs, but there's newer SARMs. There's things that just special in certain ways. While it has one specialty with healing, it's just moderate with everything else. So anyway, let's talk about how to use T-bol. T-bol is a toxic oral steroid, as many of you know. And in my view and in my opinion, you don't ever want to exceed 6 weeks on any oral steroid aside from Proviron, but Proviron doesn't contain any methylation. It's not altered like that, so therefore you're not putting that stress and strain on your body that you are with all of the toxic oral steroids. So first things first, you're never going to see me recommend running something like T-bol more than 6 weeks. I'm in the 4 to 6 weeks range, depending on which compound we're talking about. I got no issue taking T-bol to 6 weeks. A lot of times you're going to start to know as your liver and things get taxed, even if you're protecting it, around that 5 to 6 week mark, you're going to start to feel that lethargy, lose some motivation. Look, I prefer using oral steroids. I feel that I personally respond so good to them. But I also, around week 5, I hate it. And that sucks. But that's when it starts hitting me, and I run a ton of protection. That's just me personally. So it's like, what do I do here? Because I love the gains, but I hate feeling like shit. I want to be able to tear it up in the gym, and I can tell when it hits my cardio is when I really know. When I start having less desire to do it and feel like it's such a struggle, because generally it's not. And so when that hits me, that's when I know the oral's starting to really just nail me. But don't exceed 6 weeks and just see how you do. Now, I'm in the 40 to 60 milligram range. 60 milligrams being the max, 50 milligrams being like the sweet spot, 40 milligrams being a spot where you're still going to get great gains. Maybe not to the extent of 50 and 60, but you're mitigating the side effects and putting less strain on yourself. And hey, everybody responds differently. I can't tell you that. If you're first time using it, maybe start at 40 milligrams for a few days or a week. See how you're tolerating it and doing with it. And if you think that that's great, great. If not, bump it up. Don't go crazy, though. Stay in that 50 range for a minute. Give it a couple weeks. See how you're tolerating and doing. Then maybe bump it up towards the end. Or shit, run at 60 the whole time if you're an experienced user and you know you can handle it. I always like to be more progressive in the way that I go because, look, you can always go up, but once you go too high, you're kind of screwing everything up and you're hurting yourself and you're kind of putting a damper and a dent on your cycle. So that's why, me personally, I always recommend laddering up and be a little bit more progressive in it because you're still going to be making gains the whole time. It may not be quite as drastic initially, but the difference between 40 to 60 milligrams is not going to be like insane. It's not like you're going to add 10 more pounds on T-ball. You'd be lucky to ever add 10 pounds on it. Be happy with like 6 to 7 quality, lean muscle gains, and that's even a lot. People get caught up in these numbers, but you need to not get caught up in how much did you gain during the cycle. It's how much did you keep down the road. That's the type of gain I'm looking at. You might do something big on cycle, but I'm talking like, when I say this is what you can gain, I'm talking about after you run PC, things like that. You might get 7-8 pounds on cycle with T-ball. I'd expect, 5 to 6 quality pounds after a PCT that's ran properly and you're continuing to train. That's feasible. And you should be thrilled with that if you're keeping that. Even 3 to 4 pounds of I'm talking just continue. You're not going to grow to be, like some of these guys, unless you have just the most amazing genetics. I'm talking about keepability long term here. You can gain the size. You can gain massive size on certain cycles. Shit, I've seen people put on 25 pounds on D-ball easy. But how much of that is water? How much of that is going to be kept? People will argue that all day. I can't tell you. I'm not a psychic. I don't know. I've seen people do well and keep gains, and then I got people that will tell you that that's fucking impossible. And I guess I don't know what planet I'm living on because I've done it myself and I've seen a million people do it. But I'm not saying that you're going to keep them all. That's just idiotic to give anybody that impression. But then it's also idiotic to tell people you're not going to ever keep anything. This is all about how it's done. If it's done with precision, if it's done with care, it's done with caution, where you're monitoring blood work and you're eating properly and you're taking care of everything. You're getting enough sleep. There's a lot of things that go into this. It's a complex process. And to really do it right and get the most out of it, you need to go through all the proper steps. I get it. Some people don't want to do that. I totally get it. But it's just when you take shortcuts in anything in life, you have to expect that the result's not going to be as good. It might, but chances are slim that it's going to be. And you might get lucky a few times, but in the long run, you're just not. So, there's your Dr. Phil moment for the day. But look, 40 to 60 milligrams, 6 weeks max. Make sure you're running protectants. I recommend all-in-one protectants. Just protecting your liver is clearly a fraction of what needs protected. Blood pressure, cholesterol, kidneys. I can go on, vital organs. These are things that you've got to protect. So keep that in mind as well. Toxic oral steroid. But that's it. It's pretty cut and dry. It's not super complex as long as you do it properly. So that being said, stay tuned for plenty more to come. Dylan Gemelli, signing off.